I would now like to invite Honorable Allan as Chairman of the Special Parliamentary Committee on Elections, to provide his remarks this morning.
Excuse me. Thank you very much and good morning. The post-courier is probably going to mark me absent from Parliament today because I'm here. So just in case there's any post-courier reporters around, I'm just letting you know that I'm attending another parliamentary duty. In any case, let me acknowledge His Eminence, Cardinal Ribat, Your Excellency and other excellencies who may be around, the Electoral Commissioner, my good friend and brother, Mr. Kasman, distinguished guests. I'll be short. For us, I think it's critical because elections underpin all our democratic institutions. So when people have issues with the electoral process, it then goes to undermine every other institution. And I think a lot of the reports that we've had access to, including the one from Transparency International, which I'm very happy to receive this morning, all indicate that there's a lack of trust in the electoral process. But I think it points even further than that. It's a lack of trust in all government institutions. And this decline in trust has actually occurred over a number of years, and it's not recent. And if you walk around in our communities, if you go to some of the suburbs or the villages or the settlements, you'll find a common trend in that there is a lack of trust for almost all government agencies, whether they be the Electoral Commission, the police, the judicial system, and politicians most of all. We are the least trusted ones. So let me just acknowledge that. So as you move around and you look at all the structures of our democratic society and the people who ought to depend on those structures for their livelihood don't trust those structures, then you start to get this constant breakdown in society, which I think we are all seeing and we acknowledge. So let me just say that up front. And in my case, when I got elected in 2017, I did raise the issue several times on the floor of Parliament. I was interested in a parliamentary committee in 2017 to take a look at elections. I was in the opposition in those days, and nobody cared to listen, or nobody cared about what my opinions were. Fast forward to 2022, and I'm really pleased to acknowledge the approval of the Prime Minister, Honorable James Marape. In fact, we would not have a committee if he had not seen the need for one, and I want to publicly acknowledge him and Honorable John Rosso, the Deputy Prime Minister. John Rosso is also very keen. And I think there are many parliamentarians who are keen to see the improvement in our electoral processes. Most of all, if we can figure out a way to regain the trust of our people. I think that's the critical element here. But the continual decline going back several decades is unacceptable, let me just say that. And, you know, perhaps there's no better time than the present to try to deal with it and perhaps come up with some fixes that will help us going forward. One of the things that's critical to all human beings is that perception is everything. So in this work that we want to do as a committee in trying to fix elections going forward, we've got to pay particular attention to the perception of our people. out there in every corner of the country. And I think that's something that I take quite seriously as committee chairman. And the thing is that when we look at these election processes in particular, if something happens once and we see a problem, then it's an anomaly. But if it happens constantly through several elections, then it becomes a serious ailment that we need to deal with. And that's where we are now, because I think what you've heard from the Commissioner, and I think people like TI and others who've been involved in this work for a very long time, these issues with elections are quite regular and they never seem to go away. And I think that's the challenge for us, is that after we do this work, and this is the first time in 40-some years that Papua New Guinea has put together a committee to take a look at elections. The thing with public policy is that for those who actually sit down and do the course, you're supposed to review public policy every 10 years. And I don't think we've reviewed our electoral processes for over 40 years. So we're about due for one, and that's where we are. For me, it's quite simple. It's a process. There are several critical points. One, obviously, we know is the common role. We know that is sort of encapsulated in law. There's got to be better ways for us to manage the common role, and I'm really pleased to hear the contribution by the Electoral Commissioner this morning that he acknowledges that something needs to be done with that. So that's a step in the right direction. I understand previous electoral commissioners would fight over that and try to protect it. So I want to commend you, Electoral Commissioner, for your willingness to let us help you fix that. Voting, and again, the Electoral Commissioner did mention that. We've got to figure out a way to do that better. And I like the idea he was alluding to, which is, let's just protect the voting station, and you can bring your supporters in, and, we can barricade that with sandbags and machine guns and tanks and whatever to make sure that, there's no influence. I mean, these are things we have to do if we want to protect our democracy. And if we have to take extreme steps to do that, then let's do that. There's no point, we get a report that there's some remote location where there's voting going on, and there's one policeman and he decides to go and chew betel nut or do whatever, and in the meantime, you've got the candidate standing there with all his supporters marking all the ballot papers, and the rest of the community is upset. So, these are things that, and let me say again, it's pleasing to see an electoral commissioner not protect his turf, and to be willing to accept some scrutiny of that process from all of us, and then to accept the fixes that hopefully all of us will have a hand in drawing up. And then there's the counting. And, it's interesting to hear from the Electoral Commissioner. I want to tell this story. One of my friends was running in the election in Milne Bay, and he gives me a call one night and says, look, we're not allowed to take our telephones into the counting room. And I said, I know, we have the same problem here in East Sepik, because we equipped all our scrutineers with smartphones, and we said, look, wherever you are, take pictures, and in the counting room, if you think that there's something going wrong, get a picture and send it to us. When they started counting, there was a total blackout. Nobody talked to you until 7 o'clock in the night, and obviously I got upset. And when we asked the question, it's the answer that the Electoral Commissioner just gave, and that is that they were afraid that certain candidates would find out that they're not doing so well in the counting room, and then decide to burn the counting room, as we've obviously seen. So, and we've got to deal with that. We've got to come down with harsh penalties, I think, as we move forward. And I don't want to preempt anything, but we've got to protect the electoral process. And if that means that someone's supporters decides to be naughty during the counting and disrupt the process or burn the ballot boxes or whatever, then all of you should lose the right to stand for an election forever. If these are the sorts of things we need to do to restore trust and to protect the integrity of the electoral process. I mean, there are some of us who want to know what's going on in the counting room, but because you've got other people who will destroy the counting room if the news is not to their liking, and then the Electoral Commissioner shuts down the counting rooms, and then we all become suspicious again. So it just adds to that growing level of mistrust, which none of us want. So if some of these fixes have to happen in Papua New Guinea, just because they don't do it somewhere else in the world doesn't mean we shouldn't be allowed to do them here. So that's just to, we're really open-minded in the committee about the improvements we want to see. Whatever needs to be done to ensure that future elections come through better than they have done in the past must be done. And I think that's the commitment that I want to give to not just TIPNG and all of you that work so hard from election to election to try to protect our democracy, but to also signal to the people of Papua New Guinea that there are some of us in Parliament who are very serious about fixing things like this, and I'm one of them. So, going forward, for me as the chairman of the committee, I want to say I'm really encouraged by the responses from the Electoral Commissioner. We plan to begin public consultations in January. We've already started early work, so I just wanted to sort of, and put it this way, the report writing is not difficult. Transparency International has reports that go back several elections. NRI has reports going back to, I think, 1964 or something. So we have enough reports and recommendations, and that's the strategy the committee will be taking. The report will be written by NRI with input from, obviously, Transparency International and basically any interested party. So where there are accepted reports from the past, they will be incorporated. No one will be sterilizing the report. Sorry, I think sterilize has become a bit of a swear word in Papua New Guinea lately. What's a better word? Diluted. Oh, yes, that's better than sterilize. Okay. In any case, so that's what we'll be doing. We have a two-pronged strategy. The report is currently being put together by NRI. We hope that I will present it on the floor by the second sitting of Parliament next year. So the report will go first, and while that is being done, we want to start our public consultations in January. So this is where people like the Electoral Commissioner, the police, anyone else who've been interested, who've taken part in the elections will be provided an opportunity to appear before the committee and to officially hand over their reports and be subject to questions if the committee deems that necessary. And of course, the general public will also be invited, academics, anyone. And so we will have that in January, and then we will split up and we will try to go to every province, and we will allow the public in the provinces to come and speak to the committee about their concerns. And obviously, we want to demonstrate to our people that we are serious about their concerns when it comes to the elections, and we want to fix them going forward. I want to acknowledge also that we've been offered help from the European Union, New Zealand, the New Zealand government, the Australian government, the Indian government, and there may be one or two more that I haven't mentioned, but we welcome all the help we can get. As I said, we're keeping an open mind. This is the first it's the first time in our history we're taking a serious look at our electoral process, and we want to ensure that we do the job properly, that we leave no stone unturned, and that at the end of all of this exercise, that I'm hoping the people of Papua New Guinea will have some trust in at least the electoral process, and hopefully over time, and I'm a bit of a dreamer, I'm hoping that we will restore trust in all our government institutions going forward into the future. That's my statement. I will close by saying that I'm really pleased that Transparency International has accepted the invitation of the Prime Minister to be to help with the committee. So TI is actually going to be a collaborator in this exercise going forward, including NRI and INA, the Institute for National Affairs. With that, Transparency International, I gladly accept your report and thank you on behalf of the people of Papua New Guinea. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Governor. So with that, we've now come to the end of the opening session. I thank again our distinguished speakers, Honorable Allan Bird as Chairman of the Special Parliamentary Committee on Elections, the Electoral Commissioner, Mr. Simon Sinai, and TIPNG Director, Mr. Richard Kasman. As mentioned, we have great challenges ahead, but we also have more opportunities ahead for us. And as the Electoral Commissioner mentioned, there is a whole of society approach. So each and every one of us has a role to play in the next 5 years to improve election integrity and to restore public trust and confidence. So we will work to promote elections integrity through transparency.